With less than 3 seconds to grab someone's attention, how will you start your speech? Hi, I'm Neil and welcome back to my channel. I'm the founder of Simple Speech Success, where I help you go from where you are now to where you could be with your public speaking, running a workshop, giving a toast at a wedding or birthday celebration, and all of the above and more. Thank you for those who are returning to watch, and if you're new here, please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing to my channel, and I can continue tailoring videos to help you with any of your public speaking fears. Now, in today's video, again, as you know, I keep this very chatty, conversational. I want this channel to be very informal, unedited, unpolished, just me catching up with you. Hopefully you've got a beverage. I've had my tea this morning again, but hope you have got a hot chocolate or a coffee or maybe something stronger, depending on what your time zone is, and that we can have a chat. And today's topic, as you heard from the opening statement, is we have such little time to grab someone's attention. As you've seen from some previous videos, we are competing out there against the myriad of things that are going on in someone's life, online, throughout their day. They are thinking about a million other things other than you and the speech you're about to give or the workshop you're about to run, etc., etc. So it is more important than ever to be able to cut through the noise, grab someone's attention, and really put your best public speaking foot forward. And here's how. Now, there are 3 elements that I'm going to cover in terms of how to grab someone's attention at the start of the speech. I'm going to dive into each one. Please leave any comments or questions below so I can then do more videos with more tips and insights into how to structure your presentation. But let's kick it off with the first tip, which is what if. Now, these 2 words have changed the course of history time and time again by asking the question, what if? What if we could land on the moon? What if we could travel back in time? Now, the point of tip number 1 is asking a question at the opening of your speech. And the way that you can do this is by putting forward an interesting, engaging question to really hook in the viewer, gain their attention, entice them into the presentation, and they will stay engaged for the whole presentation. So, as I mentioned, a great example would be, what if we could travel back in time? It immediately gets people sitting up out of their daily habits, whether they're checking their phone, responding to an email, they're rushing to the presentation or dialing in, and they've got a million other things going on in their life. It immediately stops them in their tracks. And this is a great way to be able to put your best public speaking foot forward, grab their attention. And by the way, this happens before you even introduce yourself. So as you saw with my opening in this video, I started with the statement / a statistic that we have less than 3 seconds to grab someone's attention. And how are you going to do that? So immediately, by asking that question, how will you do that? It enables us to cut through the noise and the busyness, grab their attention, and then keep their attention throughout your presentation. After this question, you can then introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Neil, founder of Simple Speech Success. So it really creates an immediate and easy to navigate way where you can introduce that question and again, align it to your presentation. So depending on what your topic is, whether it's finance, whether it's drama, whether it's entertainment, whether it's films, whether it's money, whether it's wellness, think of some interesting questions that are thought-provoking that can immediately translate into your viewer looking up, listening, leaning in, and wanting to know more. So that is the first tip in terms of one way that you can cut through the noise. The second element I'd love to address is this one, which I really love for a couple of reasons. Setting the scene. Now, this one you might be thinking, how do I do that? What does that involve? And I'll be able to cover in more depth in other videos the exact process. But at a high level, what I mean by setting the scene is bringing to life an interesting story that is tied into your theme and subject matter. So by setting the scene, you can tell a very short story or an interesting personal anecdote or a conversation you've had that can set the scene of what to expect. So for example, if I was talking to a group of people about public speaking, I might start with a very short anecdote that I have come from a stutterer when I was bullied in high school and lost my confidence and developed a stutter, to being a sparkling speaker, presenting in front of other workshops, running sessions, in person, online, presenting hundreds and hundreds of speeches over the years, pitches, presentations, from stutterer to speaker. Now, while this channel is not about overcoming a stutter, and mine came about from losing confidence, being bullied, etc. But the point is, I'm setting the scene with an engaging anecdote, preferably a personal anecdote. People want to connect with other people. And the more that you can be a bit more vulnerable in your presentations, the more that you can share a little bit more about yourself, the more that you're able to open up and reflect on some of those experiences in your life and weave them cleverly into your presentations, the more that people, again, we've only got 3 seconds to get their attention, the more that their ears will prick up. They'll think, hang on a second, this is authenticity. This is someone being vulnerable. This is someone sharing an element of their life and their story. I'm keen to know more. So that is tip number 2 around setting the scene. And the third tip and way to cut through the noise and open a speech and presentation or run a workshop is use a bold statement. Use a bold statement. Now, statement can also be replaced with statistic, headline, quote, phrase, etc., etc. It's something bold. It's something interesting. And again, coming back to the example I used at the opening of this video, with less than 3 seconds to gain someone's attention and stop them scrolling or stop them in their tracks and making them click or making them watch more, with less than 3 seconds, how will you start your speech? So again, a bold statement is something that's going to cut through the noise. It's going to immediately dial in to tune in that engagement with your viewer. And it's again going to set the scene, as I mentioned just before. So these are the 3 elements that you can use. The first, again, is asking what if. What is an interesting question that you can pose to your audience to again align with your topic and immediately get their attention? How can you set the scene as another option? How can you lay the groundwork to set up your speech and presentation for an engaging session where people know that they're going to receive some really valuable insights out of this? They're going to get some practical takeaways, and they're also going to hear that it comes from the heart and there are some personal elements and stories being addressed. Or perhaps you'll use a bold statement, an interesting statistic, a headline from that week, some other thought-provoking conversation, question, or quote that you feel you've got a lot to talk about, or that they may be familiar with, but you've done a different spin on it. So those are some interesting ways that you can cut through the noise in 3 simple steps. Again, thank you so much for joining. Please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing to this channel. And again, I'd love to hear any other topics that you would like addressed in these future videos. I look forward to hearing how you're all going with your speech writing, with your speech delivery, and your presentations and workshops. And as always, happy public speaking.